Welcome back to another episode of Essence, our new series on the Modern Woman Show, where we are having badass women who are saying yes to life and are leading their lives come and talk to us about their essence. Jacqueline will start by giving an astro reading, and from there, we'll discuss how our astrology plays a role in the way that we show up in our lives.
Love that. We approach astrology like it's your best friend for self-discovery, for growth, and it really helps you make smart choices for you, take better care of you, and really figure out what you truly want versus what society thinks you should want. So for today, we are thrilled to have Natalie Jennings as our special guest. Natalie is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she is a lifestyle, very laid back photographer who loves capturing the moments and emotions of real life. With a BA from UH Manoa in Hawaii and an MAT from Hamline University, Natalie blends the laid back vibes of the islands with the academic charm of the North. So Natalie's lens has taken her to work not only through most of the US, but also internationally, including Japan, Guatemala, and Palestine. She also hosts the Photo Business Help podcast, where she shares insights on thriving as a lifestyle photographer. Natalie's flagship 8-week coaching container, The Greenhouse, nurtures lifestyle photographers, helping them grow a profitable business while addressing the body, mind, spirit work that truly makes a business tick. Additionally, Natalie professionally reads tarot. Currently, she's crafting 2 distinctive card decks, the Corporate Oracle and Saga Moderni Tarot. So we'll link all things Natalie, of course, but you can also find her at Jennings Photo on Instagram. So we're excited to talk about these things with her and have her on the podcast. Welcome, Natalie.
Welcome, Natalie. What's up? We're so excited to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting to be here and that this actually happened because we talked about it a while ago, and it's good to just be here. Yeah.
Yes, we're so happy to have you. Like, we are beyond ecstatic. And if you don't mind, just kind of start us off by giving a few sentences about you.
Yeah. Well, I'm Natalie, and I currently live in Minneapolis. I'm from Minnesota. I've lived all over the place, but right now I'm back home kind of since COVID. I'm sort of a self-described, is that the word to use? Plant and animal nut. Like, love all things plants, all things animals. Just like, if you watch my stories on Instagram, it's just pictures of animals doing cool things all day long. It's one of my favorite things to do. But by day, I'm a photographer. I've been doing that for over 12 years full time. And I also coach photographers on how to build profitable photo businesses, because that's a problem for a lot of folks. And on the side, I read tarot. So I'm in the process of designing both an oracle deck and a tarot deck right now. So those are the things that are kind of keeping me busy, I guess you would say. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Thank you so much for being here, for that introduction. And I cannot wait to get my hands on your decks. But for today, we get to talk about your astrology a little bit and your chart. And the way that Bri and I approach astrology is really from a growth perspective, and, you know, really thinking about it as like your most personalized growth path to, you know, find what truly is meant for you and how to, you know, how you naturally respond to those things and the energy that those things bring to your life. And basically, yeah, how to navigate it. This is like your map for support. So we were taking that lens as we have this conversation today. And I'd love to share, you know, just some insights that I pulled from your chart, and want to thank you again for talking about it on a podcast.
Oh yeah, this is great. I love this stuff. And there's a lot of Capricorn going on in my chart. So
yeah, there is a lot of Capricorn going on in your chart. Okay, well, that I'd love to dive in if that works for you.
yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome. So you have a birthday coming up. So happy pre-birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, Natalie, with your birthday at the end of the month, your sun is in Capricorn. And then your moon is also in Capricorn, which is really cool. But really first, I'd love to start us off by sharing the overall theme that your life tends to take on. And so I'll explain what each of these parts mean. But the way that I think about it when I first looked at your chart was really you are showing up as the hermit, bearing the soul of the prime minister, wearing the mask of the healer. And we'll break all that down.
That sounds fun. I'm already like, ooh, let's go.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always like to start with the sun. And, we mentioned that your sun is in Capricorn. It's actually in the 7th house. And when we talk about the sun, we're talking about how you're showing up as the hermit. Now I'll explain what that kind of means. But when we start with the sun, we really think about the sun as being like the center of you. The sun depicts your self-image, your being, your identity. And this is really about building a strong, clear self-image and being able to focus, your willpower on positive actions that support you in life. So when you think about your ego or the sun, it really is the center of your mind, just like the sun is the center of the solar system. So this is like your being, what your essence, like how you show up in all of Natalie. So with your sun being placed in the 7th house, this is the house of partnership, of long-term partnership. This includes marriage. It includes personal and professional partnerships and any, really long-term or significant interactions with other people. So this house sheds light on the qualities that you would seek in a partner, but also the dynamics within your relationship and even potential adversaries or how you would even show up in that relationship, whether it's personal or professional. So this is just like tidbits here. When you bring in the energy of Capricorn, sun, this is the ambitious energy, this, potentially materialistic. And I'm not saying that in a negative sense. I'm saying that in a, seeking resources of this world, basically seeking things that are foundational, fundamental for your life. This is also really about integrity. And, when we think about integrity, we think about, showing up like you really are, and that really is it. So it's like having that equal, like knowing who you are and standing up and showing up in that way with other people. So this is about like becoming the master of solitude of yourself, and then seeking that approval that you normally, a lot of people seek from outside relationships, seeking that approval from yourself first, and then extending that to other people. So when I, put all of this together, I really think about how having your sun in the 7th house in Capricorn, potentially it's about like, showing up in partnership can be something that gives you a ton of energy, but it can also be something where you need to cultivate like a balance between your independent identity, this really like ambitious leadership side of you, with also having a need for partnerships with who you are truly. So like that integrity needs to not only be with yourself, but with other people as well. The hermit side is that independent side. So with the Capricorn energy being like so ambitious and such a leader, it can easily, look around at partnerships and be like, oh my gosh, nobody's going to stand up for me. Nobody's on my path. Nobody gets me. I'm, kind of over here by myself. So it can easily go into hermit mode and want to exist alone if, it's not feeling like the others are, I don't know, meeting their ambitious expectations, or if they aren't meeting their own ambitious expectations and kind of want to shield themselves from everybody else. There's a lot there. And there's, I could go deeper for sure. It's a balance though with this energy and all energies. And it's a really, really cool leadership energy to have as your sun, I feel like, in a unique placement. So I just want to pause for a second and ask how this resonates with you so far, if at all.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be fair if I said I hadn't had my chart read a few times before. So it's definitely stuff that I've heard before and thought about.
Okay.
But you do such an awesome job of just describing particularly the sun energy. And I think for me, all of it hits on some level, there's definitely all of that going on. And relationship is something I like have an astrologist that I sometimes work with on my birthday. And relationship has always been a big one in my chart. So it's really fun to reflect on that, whether it's professional relationships or, romantic or familial, whatever, that's always been noticeable. I would say out of everything, that's the most noticeable pattern that comes up, is my sort of one-to-one thing that comes up with people.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's always nice to have an astrologer in your pocket.
It's something I started doing a number of years ago. I just thought as like a birthday present for myself. So I like to just do like self-care week. So I just do all these fun things on my birthday week, and that's one of them. So it's fun. Yeah.
I'm going to start doing that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Your self-care week is coming up. So
It is.
you have plans.
It is. It's great. I always look forward to it now because I'm just like, oh, I get to do all these fun things.
Good. Oh my gosh. I'm going to incorporate that. Already learned. Great. Let's go. Amazing. So the Capricorn energy is amazing. And it really is, it's very idealistic, not in that it's idealistic about the expectations it has for itself, and its ambitions and its goals are very lofty. But the thing is with the Capricorn energy is Capricorn also has the determination and the hard work to meet those lofty goals, and can be very work-oriented, have a great work ethic. And so as we kind of move into talking about your moon also being in Capricorn, that's where, I was thinking about this prime minister energy. And so when I say that your soul is bearing, the energy of this like prime minister figure, prime minister is meant to be like this leader who leads from a really solid place of integrity. And when we think about the moon, we think about its function, which is learning. It's basically teaching us, we're learning how to feel, express our emotions, become more sensitive, understanding, and also answers the questions for us, like what makes us happy? How do we act day to day from a, mood standpoint? How often does that change? And what emotions drive our behavior overall?
Mm-hmm.
So we're still in the 7th house here, house of long-term partnerships. And with your moon there, it combines this emotional, nurturing qualities of the moon with this like responsible, structured nature of Capricorn, which is really interesting in my opinion. And so when you think about this placement, it's almost like it could show up as your soul wanting to feel emotionally secure through strong and long-lasting relationships, whether they are professional or personal. It could also show up as, wanting to build a life with somebody who's very committed, very responsible, very stable. And when it comes to like expression of feelings, those expressions could be disciplined, could be controlled, not overly expressive, which is beautiful and very opposite of me. Also, with this energy could be looking for relationships, again, whether personal, professional, that will last for a long time, for the long haul. And then, the goal of them, besides being long and stable and awesome, for you could be, I need someone who's going to help me grow. I need someone who's going to want to grow themselves. I can't be with same old, no, thank you. And so it's really about this like growth, long-term committed thing, but also balancing these like personal feelings with how you feel inside and how you show up to other people could be really important as well. Like showing up as a leader, as ambitious, as responsible, as steady. And so, overall in your relationships, you could potentially take responsibility very seriously. It's like, no, I'm not just here emotionally, but I'm also here practically. We're going to make this life as partners. We're going to do this work as partners, and vulnerability might be something that you don't love, which is totally fine, and being open. But the journey, it seems like for you with your moon placement there, could be about opening up a little bit emotionally in a way that's safe for you, while still keeping things, structured, responsible, disciplined, and then like seeking that harmony between your lofty career goals and your emotional needs that do exist. So again, I'll pause there. And I heard him, so I was curious.
Well, a couple of things, but again, I'm really enjoying this because you're very, very good at explaining all of this stuff. And it's fun to hear because I think having a little familiarity with it going into this is nice because I can kind of reflect on what I've reflected on in the past. But it's so funny because we were setting up this interview and I just remembered sending an email to you guys that was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm always responsible and on time. I promise. Like that was the tone of the email, like exactly what you just said. Because I am generally quite on time and responsible. And, especially, and this is like a colleague, like a work thing, but in any relationship, I think that part of me shows up. And I just thought I was trying not to laugh because that popped into my head. That little bit that we shared. But the other thing that resonates is just the sort of relationship to others. And one thing related to that pattern throughout my life is this enjoyment that I get of depth rather than breadth. So I love meeting people. I love people. I feel like I have a great group of friends and colleagues and family and all that kind of stuff. But I really enjoy the one-to-one. And that's, I think, part of some of what's going on here. So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah. No, I never thought you weren't responsible, by the way. Sorry, Bri.
I just wanted to add to that point. Like that is so funny because that's the first thing without knowing your astrology chart or anything and literally just having the brief interactions that we've had together. But so impactful. That was my immediate response to Jacqueline. I was like, okay, but this is not her. She's so organized. And I got that vibe from her, like right off the bat. Like she is like a very organized, responsible person. And Jacqueline was like, oh yeah, no, I know. It's totally fine. It's just a miscommunication. Yeah, whatever. But it was just so funny that was also my immediate response of like, oh, but Natalie's so responsible. She's so organized. And so that also like totally translates to the way that you show up because that's my impression too.
Well, thank you for backing me up on that one. It's hilarious.
That's funny. Well, and okay, so moving into your rising sign, which is also the ascendant. It's called the ascendant sometimes. I mentioned, that you're wearing a mask of the healer. When I say wearing a mask, I really mean this is how you show up. This is like your outer persona, the outer self that other people see. They see this healer, which is Cancer rising. Mm-hmm. So Cancer rising people are often perceived as like very nurturing and caring and, somebody who expresses concern for other people and really creates a sense of like emotional security with their people, which I totally see that from you. This rising sign usually shows up as like very sensitive and intuitive and might be the person who picks up on like subtle emotional cues and have a heightened awareness of like feelings of the people around them. Also, Cancer, the symbol for Cancer is the crab. So like the crab having this like protective outer shell, symbol of Cancer, there's this protective instinct. They may create a shield, a protection around other people in their circle, also around themselves, valuing security and comfort, like nobody can get in until they trust the person, know the person, and will like start to, open up. So this like almost reserved or shy demeanor can come out wherever Cancer is in somebody's chart. For you, I don't know, it might come across that way. It might take time to warm up to people and establish a sense of trust, which I totally respect. It's like Cancer's a water sign. So it, could also come with like fluctuating moods. And it's like, I'm not really sure from one moment to the next how I'm feeling. But also you have this like very grounded earth moon where like the feelings sit. So it's like almost like a double, like it almost like crosses each other out. Not completely because there are other things impacting these placements in your chart. But it's just funny, to me how those things are like opposite a little bit, but also interplay with one another. So, I'll add Bri when we got on this call today, because she knew that I had studied your chart for a while, Natalie. She was like, she's very like earthy. She's very like down to earth. She's very like responsible, committed. It's like also like, it takes a little bit of time to get to know her. I'm like, yes, like Cancer rising. I knew it. And so, yeah, I know I'm like spoiling the fun for you. So I was just curious if it resonated with you.
No, I mean, yes. And I think you nailed it on the head when there's definitely a balance or like a canceling out thing going on with that because there's the earth and then the water. And I am both for sure. Just in different ways. But yeah, I love hearing like the description ahead of time and then you just being like, yes, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was like, yeah, she's very like grounded and I get this very earthy sense from her. And also it's like every time I connect with her, like whether it's online or every day that like we connected at the retreat, it was just like it was like chipping away. Like I got to know her a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And she was like, yes, that's her cancer. It's like so funny.
What's
Like she
Well, what's crazy about the way we got to know each other was that we're basically doing like emotional integration work. It was this very heavy kind of work we were doing, and we had just gotten to know each other. And Bri happened to be we got paired up together, and you happened to handle like a massive thing that I had to work through, lots of tears, but what I noticed, again, the crab, the shell, the whole thing, is it takes me a really long time to get there, to really like allow that to open up. And for some reason, that set and setting and your energy and everything that was going on, it just like it happened. But generally, that's the stuff that just kind of gets locked away, you know. And it's not that I'm not. It's really weird though because I'm I can be very emotional. You know, I definitely enjoy a cry and like there's no like fear of talking about my emotions or fear of. It's just like it has to be the right place and time with others to really kind of crack that open, which is really interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've done a lot of study with your chart and just self-study in general, which is so admirable. After looking at your chart today, it was really unique to me. And I had a question for you that I don't normally pose
Ooh.
in these conversations, but I was just curious if you had a take on it.
Yeah, I love it.
So one of the things I noticed was that your placements are basically the dominance in your placements tells me like they're all on like a certain side of your chart. And that tells me that your life might take on a kind of like inherent flow where you don't maybe necessarily have to do a lot of like pushing and going, although you're very determined and responsible, committed. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Like hardworking for sure, no doubt. But also this, like things may tend to line up for you, maybe at this stage in your life. I know you've done a lot of things in your life based on your bio, which is so cool. But I was just curious if you have experienced this like almost like lining up of like dominoes for you and things like falling in a good way, or in a way that makes sense to you. Because I
I
don't experience that personally.
I think I would take I would give the credit to my intuition on that one. So if I were to reflect on all the times in my life where it was like, well, that went real well. And then like a lot of things followed suit. It's generally just following an impulse and listening to it, even if it doesn't make sense at the time, which is a little hard for me to do. But just kind of going like, yep, I'm going to do that. A good example is when I was a teenager, I was a very serious musician and I had a trumpet scholarship to go to a school in Minnesota that was like just down the road. And I really didn't like my high school. Like I just really wasn't feeling like I was really flourishing where I grew up. And so I like very last minute just turned down my scholarship and moved to Hawaii when I was 18. I was like, I got to get out of here. And it made no sense and it made no sense financially. And at this is like, this will age me a little bit, but like before I had a cell phone and before there was social media. And so like we didn't have any family connections there. So it was just kind of just showing up somewhere that I felt like I needed to be, which was a very weird thing to do. But I was just like, Mom, I have to go. Like, I can't do this. And everything was lined up one way. And then it was sort of just like, listen to that thing. And, from there on, it was obviously not obviously, no one knows the rest of the story, but for me, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And so when I look at things like that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's sort of like things do fall into place in a certain way. But I think I like to give the credit to following like an impulse.
Wow. I know that feeling, and I know, that voice inside that you just can't deny. And following it makes no sense most of the time. Bri and I can both relate to that.
Yeah, I'm so inspired. Like, have you always like, even like as a child, did you always kind of have this like innate intuition that you trusted within yourself, or was that something that you listened to a little bit more as you got older?
I I think probably pretty young. I think I always just would like be like, well, this feels like the right thing to do, that kind of thing. I don't know if I was aware of it in that way when I was younger, but I definitely think I've had a strong intuitive, like I get those hits, but not like in like it's just sort of like, oh, I feel like doing this. Let's do this instead. It really wasn't that much deeper than that, I don't think, at the time. Now, of course, I have a lot of tools to sort of like pull that apart and be like, oh, maybe this is what was going on. But,
Bri and I were like, what's her human design? I didn't pull it because I totally could have, but we were I wonder what she does, how she knows.
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm just a generator. I have to look at my human. I have it, so
that's okay.
Sure, another time. Yeah.
It also points to, how intuition sounds and feels. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious. So what initially got you into your like photography and like that whole career? Like, were you always taking pictures? Like, how did that become like your full-time gig?
Yeah, that's a great question. I did my master's degree in education, so I was a high school English teacher. I love creative writing and all that kind of stuff. So I was teaching, and I didn't really love it. Like, things were starting to really change at this was about 15 years ago. And so, like tests were getting to be a big deal, and, just all this bureaucracy around education. So anyway, I always enjoyed photography and had done it as a hobby. And I was actually sitting at my desk, my teaching desk, and I was hopping on the internet looking at stuff. And this was sort of, again, this is so funny when I talk about this, because it's like, this is right when people started getting websites, but it really was sort of like that 2008, 9, like where I started to realize like, oh my gosh, I don't have to have like a studio where I have to go to the same place every day, and it's not very creatively inspiring and all this kind of, like I liked photography, but the way that it had been set up until that point just seemed kind of like either you're going to work for National Geographic or you're going to like just be in your studio, like Sears style, and then I was like, oh, I can just do this. Like, look at people are just doing, there's an internet now. So I actually started doing senior portraits for my kiddos that I was teaching, and because I was teaching high school, and then I just started doing all of it. And then I didn't go back at a certain point. So and that's a much longer story, but that's kind of the main evolution of it, was that I discovered that I could do it sort of from anywhere, and that the internet had become a thing. And so I did it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's extraordinary. Yeah. That's amazing. I feel like that's a testament to your intuition again, just being like, yeah, I'm going to do this. This feels right.
It was a weird decision because I had just finished a very expensive master's degree, and then I quit, and people were like, you're quitting teaching? I'm like, yes. To do what? To do photography. What? It was another one of those moments where I was just like, yes, this is the thing I'm going to do. So
I love that. I'd also love to hear the story about you creating your tarot decks, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're sort of in progress right now. And the Oracle deck. So for folks that don't know the difference, maybe they do, I don't know your audience, but just real quick, like traditional tarot, at least the Rider-Waite system that I use, is 78 cards. And those are the ones that have like the 22 major arcana and the 56 minors, like the wands and cups and all that stuff. And then Oracle decks can be about anything, and they can be any number of cards, and, they can be about cats or rainbows or whatever. And so I created one called the Corporate Oracle, which started out as kind of a joke. Just, I don't know why, because it just seemed like, oh, those are funny themes, like the water cooler, and, like, and then I was like, actually, this is a really great sort of bridge to help, introduce folks that might be in more of a sterile corporate kind of day-to-day environment to spirituality in a way that's not super woo-woo and off-putting, in the sense of like, just, I don't know, I feel like it's like a nice bridge. So the Oracle deck is about, it's called the Corporate Oracle, and the tarot deck sort of came about because I started messing around with Midjourney and AI art and everything. And so because I have compositing skills in Photoshop from years of doing photography, I started, and I've always been an illustrator, I started doing like taking photos and hand drawing stuff and AI stuff and then mashing them all together. And I was coming up with all these really fun images. And then I thought, I think I just should do a deck. It just sort of started becoming a deck. And I don't know how familiar you are with like Midjourney and stuff, but you can get pretty sophisticated with the prompts as far as telling it what to do. But as you both know, there's a lot of stuff in one card. There's like symbols and all sorts of little things. And so you could feed it prompts all day and it's not going to produce what you exactly want it to. And I don't even think that's artistically that much fun. So I really sort of, I guess, take pride in noting that it's not just AI, that it's like dozens of images all smashed together and hand drawn and stuff like that. So that's sort of how those came to be. Those are like that's sort of like the longish version of that.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. The Corporate Oracle. Yes, please. I need one for everybody that I know in corporate, which is a lot of people.
Yeah, it's
literally. Sorry, Natalie. No, I just got my hands on them and they're so sick. Like they are so well done. It's phenomenal that like, yeah, I'm excited to play around with them.
Thank you. And well, I should say that you have a copy. You're like the only person. And I'm almost done with the guidebook, which is really fun. It's fun to like look at the art and then think about, really what meaning you want to attribute to it. But it's also very time consuming. So I'm getting there. There. And I'll send it over to you guys right away when it's done, but it's almost done. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to wrap around to, or kind of circle back to, speaking of corporate lingo, circle back to, to you were talking about earlier and how like intuitively, making decisions like not doing your scholarship with music and going to Hawaii, and then you like just completing your master's and then, pivoting from that too. Intuitively that felt right. And it seems like it's been a pattern throughout your life. How do you navigate, like for people who may struggle with those external like components taking over their internal compass? Like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you let yourself be the lead amidst everyone being like, you're crazy, what?
Well, that's a great question. I think I prioritize my own happiness a lot, like just really inherently feel like self-care is not selfish, that kind of stuff. So if I'm just like, I don't like this or this doesn't feel fun, it's easy for me to not do it because I'm not terribly invested in like labels or titles or awards or anything like that stuff doesn't really drive me, oddly enough, with the Capricorn stuff. It's like my own compass drives me. And so I'm very self-competitive with stuff, but I don't necessarily give a crap about what everybody else thinks, honestly. And so I think, I do, of course I do, but like in terms of my own success or whatever, I'm not going to just keep doing something because I think I'm supposed to keep doing it. In fact, I think there's some sort of thing, and it's probably in my chart, where like if I'm supposed to be doing something, it's generally like, okay, I don't want to be doing this anymore because, I like to sort of do my own thing. So I don't know if that answers it, but I think it's just, I think it is prioritizing, how I feel. It might not be my own happiness, but it's just like, I don't want to feel icky about something that I'm doing every single day. And the other thing that I think is helpful is just for anyone listening that's like, I don't know how to do that, is really trusting that the how will sort of just make itself known. Like if you know the what, like I don't want to feel this way or I want that or whatever, it's like sometimes you just have to take a leap, and the how, kind of like how you get there. We're always trying to like, well, how's that going to work? Like, how am I exactly, like a good example is like, you might your what might be like, I want to be in a beautiful house on the beach in Hawaii for the winter, like, and the how of that just immediately just gets confusing. But you might have a colleague who knows a lady who's like, hey, my friend is going out of town for 6 months and really needs someone to house at her house in Hawaii. And all of a sudden you find yourself there, and it's really not as hard as it sounds to get there. So I think you have to sort of trust the how in a lot of ways, like really trust that if you're following what feels good, that somehow that's going to work out for you. And I that's the best way I can explain it, I think.
That's very powerful. No, thank you for sharing that. That's super inspiring because yeah, I think that is a little bit our emotions are undervalued. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you were describing that, yeah, letting our emotions lead, letting the what lead, is a very powerful way rather than getting caught up in the how and each step along the way, just like trusting that it's going to work itself out.
I will add that it is a lot more difficult when other people are involved. So I would say the only area where this gets a little murky is within relationship. And of course, that's part of my chart too. We've talked about that. But I think like when you have another person's entire energy and life like spinning in your space, or multiple people, that can make it a little bit harder because there's so many dynamics there.
Preach. But I love what you said about just like trusting the how. And that also kind of confirms that the natural flow of life really does happen for you, because it like shows up in this way for you all the time. And I do think, for everybody, this is available, but I love, that it's been a theme for you. And it's a really, really good reminder on how to think about things instead of being so intellectual about it.
Yeah, it's that classic, like, I talk about it in tarot readings all the time. It's the swords versus the cups. It's the head and the heart. And it's so hard to shut our heads up. Like, it's so hard. And that's the part of us that's trying to keep us alive and safe and do the sensible thing. But our heart is so intelligent. And I think when you don't listen to it, you end up having problems.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to add just a connection that I just made by listening to your chart and like knowing who you are, how phenomenal it is of the being that you are, that you have these like practical, logical, responsible, grounding energy. But everything that I've described is like, yeah, that partnered with this like intuitive, emotional, like leadership is something that is so rare. Like typically I feel like the people that I meet are like so intuitive, so emotional, really good at letting themselves express, but may not always have that like practical, responsible side, or not get that. It's like one or the other. And I just feel like you embody this like beautiful balance of both.
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel like I didn't have a lot to do with it, but thank you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You did, because of that showing up so much, I feel like that's like you really letting yourself be this like deconditioned, completely you person, though. I feel like that's a huge part of it.
Well, thank you. I feel like I would be in outer space somewhere if I didn't have as much Capricorn as I do in my chart. I think I would be away. I wouldn't have made this call. I'd be just logging on right now. Like, that would be.
That's amazing.
That's so funny.
Well, aside from all the amazing things that you're doing, like I know these listeners are going to be like, how can I get my hands on more of Natalie? Where can they find you?
I think Instagram's probably the best spot because I have 3 accounts because of photography and coaching and tarot and stuff. And they're all connected. And then all the websites are linked. So you can just go to Jennings Photo and you can find all of them from there. So. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And before we wrap up too, for those who are trying to cultivate their essence right now, what would one piece of advice be that you would give them?
Yeah, I feel like I'm being redundant, but I really want to drive home that not worrying about the how thing. Like if you can really listen to what doesn't feel good and what feels good, and just trust that if you keep following what feels good, it'll work out. It doesn't mean it's not going to be a little bit of, bumpy road along the way, but there's like this core part of you that will continue to feel good if you're on the right path, I think. And I know that just sounds not very easy to follow that advice, but I think the how thing has really been helpful in my life. And just, I guess, stepping back maybe a little bit from that is just start really listening to yourself. Like, are you listening to your head too much? Are you just doing what you think you're supposed to be doing too much? Or just all of those things, just kind of deconstructing that a little bit, because a lot of times that's, I think, why our society is unhappy a lot of times, because we think we're supposed to have like the car and the penthouse and the whatever. And that's what we think and what we're conditioned to think we need. And some people thrive with that, but not everybody. And then those folks find themselves getting whatever it is that they want and not feeling fulfilled or happy. So I think it's sort of just not listening to your head as much and just not worrying about the how as much.
Amazing.
Good.
So good. Thank you so much for your time and being on the show. Like, it was such an honor. And yeah, we're so excited to have you.
Natalie, you rock.
You guys are the best. This was really fun. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I loved hanging out with Natalie. I don't know about you.
Wasn't she sick? Like, I just feel like she's so herself. She's so grounded. She's so, like you said, wise about life. Like, she is just this like wise sage. And I just love hearing, like, I resonate so much with that, like, practicality, responsible, disciplined version, but also with the mix of her, like, such a powerful intuition and emotion and energy. It's just, she's phenomenal.
I love what we learned about Natalie, especially when she was sharing part of her story at the end. And I just know there's so much more there.
I know.
That she has not shared. Natalie, we will find you. And
yes. Yes, 100%. 100%. I'm excited to get to know her better. Yeah, she's phenomenal. But thank you so much for tuning in today. We would love if you would be so kind to rate The Modern Woman Show, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. And of course, remember, always let your essence shine.